destinations,
life hacks, and different hobbies to try.
At iba't ibang interesting topics.
we got you.
Kaya, samahan ang inyong mga ate
at Kuya Vloggers.
Every weekday at 2 p.m. Philippine Standard Time.
ang vlogging program na siguradong aabangan ninyo. Full of information, fresh discoveries. So don't miss out
On like and share.
on Like and Share. Only here on INCRadio.
This is INCRadio, DCEM 954, the voice of truth, the official radio station of the Church of Christ or Iglesia ni Cristo.
Don't underestimate
the power
of a single
conversation.
It could change your whole life.
INCRadio Chatline.
Conversations that matter.
Hey everyone, welcome to Chatline, and today we're talking about the price of winning. To compete or not to compete, competition, I think it can bring out the best and worst in us. So we're kind of exploring that today, but not just me by myself. I think I don't know who's competitive out of the ones who are with us, but I guess we're gonna find that out this evening. Who's gonna be the more aggressive? Maybe Arnie. My thing is probably Arnie. What do you think, Nate? Out of the
I don't
four
think
of
so.
us,
I don't think so. I think Nate's more competitive than I am.
are we gonna compete about who's more competitive? You think he's more competitive? Really?
I mean, Kuya Nate, you were in a sports team, right? So I would say you're probably more competitive now.
I don't know about that.
I did play rugby, but most of the time we were losing, so you had to have different reasons to want to play.
Arnie, why do you say Nate's more competitive than you? I'm curious.
Yeah, because he's got the whole athlete thing going on and everything. But me, I'm not that competitive. I don't think.
I guess it depends on what it is, right? Like what the situation is, like maybe academically, athletically,
Video games.
video games.
Yeah, absolutely.
What
So
about you,
like
EJ?
I don't think there's like a mic that's kind of staticky. But sorry, what was your question?
What aspects are you competitive in? Nate, is video games for you? Is it the same?
No, actually, in video games, I'm not too competitive. Actually, I avoid like competition in like video games. I mostly play like single player games where you're not playing with people. Because okay, this is one of the things. Like I'm the type of person who like I know that I can get assigned to work on something all of a sudden, so I need to keep my schedule like pretty open for the most part. So I avoid like playing online like with people because and like one of the worst things you can do like an online competition, especially to your teammates, is like leave midway. so,
I can
guess
I can agree with that. Yeah. Like if I want to relax, I'll play a game that's more of like by myself. That's not a racing game. It's a racing game, forget it. But yeah, if you play like, especially if you have like back in the day, like with the Halo competitions, like when you bring a bunch
Ooh,
of
yeah.
friends together, it got so competitive.
Yeah.
Unbelievably competitive.
it's funny you brought up like racing games, Kuya, like because that's like the one game I'm competitive at, like racing games. Like I like even if I'm playing offline, like single player, I still will not accept anything other than number one. If I don't get number one, I will restart the whole race. So I'm like, okay, I need to get number one. But yeah, it's like the one thing I think I'm competitive over.
I don't know that I'm competitive at. I'm trying to be careful with my words here because somebody might say differently in the live chat for people who know me. I feel like I can be competitive if it's like a team thing, but individually, if I don't know, maybe if it's for on stuff that I'm passionate about, like maybe like music, or but I don't know how I would be competitive with music. Maybe just knowledge or like info, like trivia. I feel like Nate, you're pretty good with trivia. Are you ever competitive about trivia with people? No.
Ugh. Yeah, you remind me. Yeah, if we get trivia involved, board games, I get super competitive. And like in our household, like me and my wife and my son will play. And I taught my son to be competitive too. So like Monopoly would be the prime example. And he is cutthroat when he plays that game. He's
Oh no.
ruthless. Like he pretty much boils it down to like, I need to buy up as many things as I can as fast as I can.
That's how you
And
win. That's how you win.
yeah,
You buy
that is how
everything you
you win.
step on. Like every square you step on, you buy it. Because when people step on it, now they have to pay you. Or if they don't want to keep paying, they have to buy it from you, and you can rack up the price.
And I could see where he went from like, oh, I want to get this because I think this is nice to just like, I must dominate the board.
Monopoly, I feel like that's something that we get competitive in, or Uno, like one of those games where you're just in a big group. I feel like Uno brings out the worst, the
I'm
worst
just getting,
in friendships, like competition.
I'm just getting flashbacks every time you mention something new.
Sorry, sorry. No, I said Uno. I said Uno. I don't need to draw cards. I said Uno.
No, I've had people like, I've had videos of our groups of friends where some of them will literally they stand up straight from the table like, no, no, and they start arguing and debating their point. Yeah. And stuff like that. That's nice, simple stuff. But how do you guys feel about competition in general? Is it something that you find yourself in a lot of the time? Are you drawn to competition? When you're in it, like how do you handle it? Do you handle it pretty well? Because I've grown up with people who are like really sore losers. Like when they lost, like some people would either get really angry or they would cry. I'm just like, really? Yeah.
I was. You
Thoughts?
brought
No
up the
judgment. No judgment to those. I mean, it's just
you
observations.
Well,
brought
I'm
up being a
judging
soul.
myself right now.
No, I'm with you, Nate. I'm with you because I'm like I would say I'm like a sore loser when it comes to like, and this is why I don't play like fighting games anymore. Like that ones where you're kind of like on each side of the screen and then you have to beat the other person. Like the reason I don't play fighting games anymore is how there's like an attack in fighting games called like a grab attack, which you can't do anything. Once someone grabs you, like it's just damage. Like you can't defend yourself or anything. And I like that's kind of like the only thing that I don't like about it. Like when and this like my brothers, my cousins, every time we play a fighting game, and they would like kind of continuously just do that attack. Like it annoys me so much that I'm like, I don't want to play anymore. And I think because of that, I kind of grew up like not really like I don't actively look for like competition, but if I find myself in one, I try to win, especially if I'm with people, because I'm sort of like I don't want to disappoint them, so like I have to do like my best to win.
There's a good point about
Arnie.
that when it comes to like spamming a game to where like the
Ooh.
competition is not fun. But
Mm. Like when someone
yeah,
just wants to win, right? Like it's not even fun to play with you anymore.
right.
Yeah, I don't like to lose, but even though I don't like to lose, I'm not a sore loser. And so I think people, if they're sore losers, then they shouldn't play because they're not going to win all the time.
I don't think anybody likes to lose, right? It's kind of just like an ah, like ah.
I don't mind, Tony. I don't mind
No, I mean,
losing.
there are some people who knows how to lose, and there's some people who really
Yeah,
don't, where
yeah.
it's not good. But me, I think I'm more competitive when it comes to life, not necessarily video games,
Oh,
because in video games I know I'm not good, so I really have nothing to like compete about. But when it comes to life, I think I am competitive, but not
what do
in
you
a
mean by
way
that?
like, let's say at work, right? I always want to be the best
Okay.
so that if anything happens. Like if they said, hey, someone needs to go to Montana to teach a class because I'm good, then they're going to send me, right? So
Okay.
I'm competitive in that way, but I'm not competitive in a way where I'm going to do anything unethical, because there's some people where when they're very competitive, they will do whatever it takes to win, right? They'll make the other
Mm-hmm.
person look bad, or they'll sabotage people and things, just so that they can win. So I'm not that type of a competitive, but I do like to compete and be good at what I do and better than other people.
I'm curious what it would be like to work with you, Arnie, like being up against Arnie and how she would compete with me at work.
No, I'm very supportive when it comes to my coworkers, but you know, when they try to, sometimes because you're the new person in town, they try to make you look bad, like you don't know what you're doing. And so
Yeah,
when
yeah,
they
yeah.
do that, then I do get very competitive, and I will show them I know what I'm doing, and things like that. But it's, in the workplace it's different because people have ulterior motives and they have agendas and all that stuff, and so
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it can get brutal.
Arnie brought up like cheating and doing whatever it takes. That's like the history of like automotive racing. Like if you look at the
What?
history, it's just constantly trying to find ways to cheat and get away with it. Yes.
Really?
Yeah, one example that stood out to me, it was a NASCAR, I think it was NASCAR team, and because NASCAR races are like really long, you have to come in to like refuel
Right.
your vehicle, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what they came up with, because like everything in your NASCARs, they all have to be the same so that like the playing field's kind of level, and then it's just whether you make fine adjustments to your car, and that's how you can try to get an edge. But for the most part, like all the drivers kind of have the same vehicle. Well, this one guy in this one team, to avoid having to refuel, they had their fuel line, which goes from your gas tank, to your engine. They just made it super long so that there was a lot of extra fuel in that fuel line the whole time. And then they found that out like later. Or like drag racers would throw like, cinder blocks in the back of their vehicle to weigh down their rear tires. All over like automotive racing. It's like, how can we cheat and get away with it?
I would say though,
Wow.
I would take, if my opponent felt the need to cheat to win against me, I would take that as a compliment. like for me, I already won. I already won. If they felt the need to cheat to win.
No,
Sometimes you get caught though.
no. I don't take it as a compliment. I take it as a challenge. If you think you're going to cheat and win, yeah, you're not going to win. But Nate, it's true though, because even in street racing, right, where people would do things to their exhaust and do all kinds of stuff, right, to make them go faster, and they put stuff in the engine, I think.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, but street
Remem-
racing, I don't think there's any rules involved.
Yeah.
Yes,
Different
there
different ball game.
is.
But yeah, the people will try all sorts of things, even in professional sports. Like it was kind of sketchy in one of the NBA finals when like the air conditioning went out in the building conveniently, or one thing or another would happen and give one team an edge over another. So yeah, it's kind of pushing into the territory where you're starting to ruin like the whole spirit of the competition when you start going down that
Mm.
way. So there's definitely like an ethical discussion to be had, like where do you draw the line on trying to gain an advantage over your opponent, or is it even the right thing to try to take every advantage, because rule books can only try to predict so many things that people may try to do to cheat. Okay, and then constantly they'll find loopholes for that. The NBA is another example, like the Shaq rule. If you remember Shaq, the guy was massive and
Mm-hmm.
nobody could like stop him. They actually came up with a rule just because of him.
What?
So yeah, the Shaq
What's the
rule,
rule?
you can't hang out under the basket, the 3 second rule,
Oh.
because he would just sit
Mm.
there and it's like just give him the ball and nobody could drag him or
Would be
push him out of the
ready.
way.
Yeah.
He just drops the ball right in. So yeah, there's that too, where the spirit of the game can be ruined, and so they have to like adjust the rules accordingly.
Well, let's explore that a little bit. Like let's think about first, because the idea of having competition in the first place, why is it good? Like what are things that you would say are a benefit of having competition? Like why even have competition in the first place?
I mean,
I
it's
think
just a. Oh yeah, go
with
ahead, Orny.
competition, I think it just helps you to strive to be better. Because if there's no competition and everyone is okay with the status quo, then you're not going to compete. It's not going to get better. You're just going to like,
Hmm.
oh, okay, well, no one's doing anything. Why should I? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of that, a lot of the times when you're pushing for like excellence in like a sport, you can take some of these aspects and you can translate it to the real world, to like a job. You think of like the book The Art of War, that was written for war, but it's often referenced in business. So just because you apply certain skills, certain tactics in one field doesn't mean it couldn't apply to another. So like trying to manage a team in sports, well, that could relate to trying to manage a team in like the corporate world.
Mhm. Okay.
I would say,
EJ?
Tony. Oh yeah, I mean, I would say it's also like a good gauge of like your skill level, assuming nobody cheats like in the competition, right? Like I feel like it's a good way to sort of gauge like where you are in terms of like like competitive wise, like, or not skill wise, I should say, not competitive, skill wise, where you are. uh like for me, if I get like, say if I get number 9 in a 10-person race, then I know, okay, I need to be either faster or I need to I need to build up more stamina. Because depending on what happens, if I, like, let's say on a foot race, if I uh if I end up like running really fast in the beginning and then kind of slowing down the end, then I know I need to build up my stamina. But if it's just I have the energy to kind of like do the entire race, but I'm still in 9th place, that means that okay, I need to work on my speed then. Like I feel like it, like the competition, and kind of like borrowing from what like Arnie said, like it's a good way to find out like what are you kind of like lacking, at the moment, where like in terms of like like in this sort of like field, where are you like, where do you kind of sit in terms of like skill level?
Okay.
I think
Any
too,
other?
like it's about having fun. Like you could talk about like how is this going to relate in the real world? How is this going to help anyone? It's like you're allowed to have fun too. You know what I mean? We
Hmm.
kind of forget that we don't. Not everything in life has to boil down to like its utilitarian, use, and whether or not it's going to contribute one thing or another to affect numbers. Like sometimes you just want to have fun. Sometimes people just want to watch a game, just to be happy. Like I think sometimes we forget that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
there's
agree with
always
the
like.
whole. I agree with the whole having fun, because sometimes when I compete, if I know I'm not good, like let's say I did like half marathons before, right? And I already know there's no way I'm going to be in the top, whatever. So I would just do it for fun, and that wasn't really competitive. But I know there's people who are really competitive when it comes to running, and so if I know I suck, I'm just gonna do it for fun, whether I win or not, right? But then there's certain sports where, like volleyball, I love volleyball, but I'm not going to play if I know I'm going to lose because I don't want to lose.
But you wouldn't play just for the enjoyment of playing with like your friends or your sisters or something?
Just to play, I would, but if it's like a competition, I wouldn't play if I knew we were going to lose. So every time I played is because we actually won. And so sometimes I'll gauge
There was hope.
like who the competition is, or things like that. And I'm like, yeah, no, that's not going to happen.
What makes a good competition? Because you guys kind of mentioned, you know, like we were talking about benefits, right? We're benefits of what comes from a competition. So what would be like a good like you could come out of it and be like, man, that was really good. Like that was a really good game.
I think when your skills are the same, because when you're competing against a
Mm,
team that's really sorry, then it doesn't really matter that you won because they were sorry to begin with. You know what I mean? But when you win
sorry.
and it's head and it's head to head, and and point to point, and everyone's playing the same, then that's a real competition. And then winning that makes you feel better. But if you beat people who weren't good to begin with, then what did you
See,
really win?
that's an excellent point that she brings up, Because if there's a tournament that's coming up, and the whole point of the tournament is to win, so every team that should be entering in it for the benefit and joy of anyone who's gonna, take the time out to prepare for this and to, have this competition, they need to be putting in their best effort. Because, like she said, if like one team just isn't taking it seriously, like no one wants to play that team. It's not fun to play a team that just doesn't care about winning. So everyone kind of has to be in the same spirit of winning. Like this is the goal. This is what we're trying to accomplish. So all of us are going to put like our best effort forward, in this, because sometimes it's not enough just to win, but like that win has to be meaningful.
I like that last point. It has to be meaningful. Like you feel like you earned it, right? You feel like you earned it. Like, yeah.
Yeah, you'll
Like even if you,
remember the close games that will
yeah.
come from behind. Those are the ones people remember.
Yeah, because when my nephews were younger and we would race and I would beat them, okay, yeah, I know I could beat them because I know I could run faster than them, right? Then as they started getting older, they're like, Auntie, let's race. And I'm like, no, it's okay. Because I know they're going to beat me. And so, even though I beat them, it wasn't a big deal because, it was for fun. But now I'm not going to let them race me because there's no way I'm going to let them beat me because, I have to be better than them.
That's fair. That's like family competition. I feel like can get intense sometimes, especially I'm thinking of like cousins or like even siblings, like competing with with your siblings. There's always a different level of intensity. I feel like when you're anyway when you're competing with your siblings. But
Oh yeah,
so
because you're
the
more comfortable around them.
true to show like your ugly side, right? You're very vicious. Like let's go
My son,
to the
my
point.
son is the prime example of that. I was playing a video game with him. It's like one of those puzzle games where like, you try to move pieces around, and then
Yeah.
if you get a combo, you send it over to the other person. He was like winning. My side was pretty much loaded up. I was about to lose. He puts down his controller and he starts dancing because that's how confident he was the game was over. But it wasn't. I came back and I beat him because he was a sore winner at the time. We talk about sore
Yeah.
losers. You can also be a sore winner.
Yeah. Agree. I'm
And,
guilty of that
and
with basketball, I think.
yeah, and it's funny like that because I do see that where people say, "Well, go ahead, we'll give you a head start because I know I'm gonna win anyways." I'm like, that makes me want to win even more, because you think you're gonna win just because you think you're better, but yeah. So like even when, like you said, with basketball, I'll play one on one with my nephews, and they're like, "It's okay, Auntie, I won't even block you. Go ahead and make a shot." And then I'm like, "Okay." But and then there's other kids where I know I'm gonna beat them. Like I'll start playing, right, and because this just happened a few weeks ago, and then I was like, I was up ahead, and then they were trying to catch up, and they could. I'm like, okay, I'm old, I'm tired, game's over, I won.
So flip end of the spectrum. So we talked a little bit about good competition. What's sucky competition? Like, no, I'm not here for this. I'm gonna tap out. This is not
Cheating.
fun anymore.
I think cheating. When people cheat in any way, then that's not a fun competition because it's not fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unsportsmanlike conduct, just
Ooh, good
overly
one.
celebrating, just mocking the other team. Like that's just not cool. I mean, like I've been in games where like, we were behind by a lot and the other team would just still play their normal game and not try to like rub it in or anything. And then of course I've seen the opposite of that. And it's like you don't have a respect for that team. And of course, like the following year, like you're gonna come back harder on them.
And I see that with coaches, like with my nephew's basketball game, whenever they're winning by a lot, they take out all the starters and then start putting in like the second string and all that, right? And I'm like, that's messed up because now you're just showing the other team that even with the second strings, they could still beat them. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's cool.
See, there's a difference in culture with that too, because like in college football, it's all like a big ranking system. And so every point matters. So you cannot
Mm-hmm.
let off the gas. So that's why you'll see like college scores, they go up like 80 points to like nothing and they just keep racking it up because they have
Yeah.
to. Otherwise, toward the end of the year, like that's going to hurt them. Versus like the NFL, where it's just like you're in divisions and it's just based on record, not your points. So if you win, you win. You lose, you lose. And so you could see that change in attitude where if a team's like way ahead, yeah, they start bringing out the second string guys. Not really as disrespectful, but they don't want to get like their main guys hurt. If that makes sense.
How do you see it in, because Arnie mentioned the workplace earlier, like professional environments?
I've been in professional environments where it was competitive to the point where your coworkers didn't want you to succeed. And that's always like a terrible
Mm.
place to work versus where everyone kind of is looking out for each other. And it's like that's much better work culture because you're helping each other out, helps out the company in the end. You're not trying to like, stab each other in the back just for your own gain. And I've mostly been on the side of like having to help out my coworkers, but then I found like they wouldn't want to help me out because it would hurt them like when it came to like year-end reviews. And like I was always kind of annoyed by that. It's like, hey, like I would take my time out for you. I would help you with your work when it was too difficult, but then you wouldn't take any time to like acknowledge me to my boss or anything just because you thought that like that would mean you wouldn't get some kind of raise and it would go to me instead. It's like, well, I would deserve that raise because I helped you out clearly. And it's like for me, if someone were helping me out, I'd be happy and I'd be like, I would want this person to succeed. I would want this person to get what they deserve.
Yeah, see, but not everyone's ethical in that way. And that's the one thing that's bad about the work when it's competition like that. Like you said, you could be out there helping everybody, and then at the end of the day when you need help, they just look at you like, why should we help you, right? The one thing that I don't like about competition at work is where they're asking you questions, but not because they need to know the answer. They're doing it because they're testing you to see what you know. Because
Mm.
they want to point out that no, you don't know everything, kind of a thing. And so they try to test it out where to see if there's places where you would fail so that they can say, see, she's not good, why do we keep her and stuff like that. So that I've seen a lot of, which I don't think that's good competition.
Okay. I wanted to comment on what Melanie put in the chat because she said years of experience doesn't always translate to skill level and competence. And I kind of felt that way, especially like academically, with people where, they would get to this point of like junior, senior year, and you could tell by how they would handle things that they kind of just they cheated a lot of their way like through. They kind of just did things to get that GPA. Like what they were after was the grade point average, right? They're trying to like get that, and they do whatever it takes to get that GPA, which is kind of like, well, did you really gain like the actual knowledge? Like even though you went through all those years of like going to school, and it's like, well, I don't, it kind of makes you self reflect and be more thoughtful, I think, about your intentions of why you're doing things.
Right. Because are you trying to just get something short term? You just want to get
Hmm.
that raise right away. But when you have that attitude, like over a long period of time, like what person are you going to be, like
Hmm.
20 years down the line, 10, 20 years down the line, you know? So, like for me, I always like to help people. And I really don't care if it gets me a raise or not, or if it ends up somebody else, getting the accolades for something I did. I'm still going to stay the same person I am because in the end, that's who I want to be. So, in that respect, when it comes to competition, it's like I'm competing long term. I want a good track record, of years of experience of doing things correctly, doing things right, versus just trying to get things done right in the moment, even if it just appears to be right. Like I'm not about that anymore.
Being able to kind of maintain your character, right, through the process, and being able to say you won fairly and ethically as opposed to winning it. But then what did you lose? like you lost all these genuine relationships. Could be like in work, could be in school, and a lot of different things that you just kind of traded off because you wanted to get that A, you wanted to get that promotion, you wanted to get XYZ, whatever it was.
Yeah, and I think when even if people win, hypothetically, and not in a clean way, I'm hoping their conscience are bothering them, um, and then maybe they'll realize that that's not the way to go. But I don't know. That's just me.
Why do
And
you guys think? Sorry, go ahead, Nate.
and you can see too, especially with like athletes, since we're talking competition, those athletes that really did anything that it would take to win, even if it meant like really stepping on some toes along the way. And then there's others that also won, sometimes it's by the same amount, and people don't remember them because they just kind of quietly won. And I saw a meme about Tim Duncan, who played for the San Antonio Spurs, and it's like you forget like this guy won a whole lot of championships because the way like their team would win is just by playing really good basketball.
Mhm.
They didn't try to cheat or really try to put themselves out there as boisterously as they could. It's just like they just played a solid game and won, and then walked away quietly. And it's like you don't remember those, but then when you're reminded of that, you're like, yeah, that's actually really cool that you could still do that.
Why do you guys think people go to those lengths in order to win?
Because I think some people really, that's all they want to do is they want to be on top, they want to win, and they don't care who they step on. They don't care, what reputation they lose. They just want to win. Especially, and I think a lot of the driving sometimes is with monetary, what they're going to gain monetarily, right? If they know they're going to make money, then they really don't care as long as they get the prize. Then I think some people are okay with that, which I think is not cool.
Yeah, I think it kind of depends. Like, really, if you do whatever it takes to win up to a certain degree, it might not be that wrong, to do, because especially when it comes to like sports, that is kind of the whole point, is to win. And of course, you can definitely cross the line where you're breaking rules and trying to hide it. But on the other side, it's like you're trying to take advantage of the rules and win by that
Mm.
way. You see that with like some NBA players when they try to draw fouls. People get upset that they do that. I was like, but that's part of the game. That's in the rules. If you draw a foul, you get to take the shot. So it's kind of built in and you can't avoid it.
Mhm.
It's just some people don't like that some teams try to win in that way, but it's like, well, that's kind of the nature of the game. You have to accept it.
Mm. I think for some people, it's like they just needed to prove something to themselves. Like by being kind of like the best at something. I feel like they need that win to prove something to themselves. But I feel like if you need to kind of like, what we were talking about, if you feel like you need to break the rules, like you kind of need to cheat just to win. Is that like, are you really kind of winning on that, or it's like somebody's just so much better than you, then that like you need to kind of gain an advantage, to win.
But in contrast to that, I sometimes people are not doing it just for themselves. I think some people want to win because they want the fame, they want the glory. They want everyone to see how great they are, and they want everyone to praise them and everything like that, not necessarily for themselves. So, you know, people have different motives, and I think depending on what your motive is what's going to determine whether you're going to have a clean competition or you're going to be dirty and pull out all the stops and do whatever it takes to win. So
Yeah, and it doesn't help too that like when it comes to media, they're only going to focus on what makes the interesting storyline. Like I said, San
Mm.
Antonio Spurs, they win, but in like the most boring way. So then nobody, it doesn't really come to mind because nobody wants to present it as like, oh, here's an example of how you can win. you want to focus on like, oh, this had the dramatic storyline. This is what they did. And this is the things they said and the reactions of the audience and this and that. It's kind of like a bias towards like whatever is more eye catching. So there's that aspect too.
Becomes more about entertainment, kind of in that way. Like what's more
Right.
like, ooh,
And like
juicy.
kind of how people pick and choose, how to present, the sport. Because a lot of times when you're playing a sport, especially if it's not nationally televised or anything, you're just playing the sport. I played
Mhm.
rugby for 7 years, and like the crowds are minuscule, right? So everyone's there playing just to play the sport and enjoy it. And so a lot of the other stuff that may happen in professional sports, especially off the field, doesn't happen in more amateur sports. It's just more purely like we're playing this game.
So a step further from that, because when I'm thinking about competition too, you mentioned earlier, Nate, like short term versus long term, right? Because you could be in something for a long time, and you're kind of going through the process of it, and you're trying to get better. And is there a point that you think it would become unhealthy for someone to keep going and like lose, like not just unhealthy, but like you're losing the purpose of the competition? Like you're losing the purpose of like you whatever you end up doing now is like, well, that kind of defeats the purpose of why you started in the first place.
I think for me, if people lose themselves or they lose their dignity or their self respect, I think that's when the competition doesn't really matter anymore. If they have to cheat or they have to do things to make others look bad, then at the end of the day, who are they? You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's like when you hear stories about Michael Jordan afterwards, everyone remembers like Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen, right? Oh, this
Hmm.
was the big basketball duo. They must be best friends right now, right? No, they're not.
Oh,
Not at all.
really?
No, Michael Jordan was like super duper competitive, and
Mm.
to the point where it would affect his relationships, with the people that he spent a lot of time with. And so like, yeah, that's like one of the prime examples. You are so competitive that you are willing to like sacrifice your relationships with people. But at the same time, I'm thinking like maybe that's what he wants in the end. Because in the end, it's like up to us. What do we want out of life? How do we want to define things? And also, like we see someone like Michael Jordan. Do we envy that? Do we want to be that person? And like for me, it's like I want to be competitive, but I'm not gonna be competitive to the point where I'm gonna sacrifice like my family and my friends. And like really high level racing, like F1 racing,
Hmm.
um, they're driving like 200 miles an hour. It's like super dangerous. And this one racer commented, like, as they were going into a turn, he knew he can pass up his opponent because his opponent has a wife and a kid. He knows he has a family. He's not going to take the same risk that he would. And so
Oh.
he knew he could pass him. So there's that aspect too. It's like, you know, in the line of what we're talking about, like, what are you willing to sacrifice? It's like,
Mhm.
is the game, is this competition more important? Is the fame more important than maybe like your friends and family?
Tough questions, but very real questions. I didn't know that. But I can see that for sure. Your racing example, Nate.
And not just family, but also like your life, because you know how people, they want to be like in the Guinness World Book of Records, right? And so they'll do some things that could possibly be dangerous. I remember as a kid when we would go swimming, we would always have the competition to see who could stay underwater the longest, right, without breathing, right? And some people, I'm like, dude, you really can't stand that long, like, come up.
Yeah.
But they were doing whatever it took to win. And so I think that that also should play a factor when people compete. What are you willing to give up? What are you willing to lose? And is it really worth it to win when you're going to lose all that?
I think going back to what we mentioned earlier, competition is for sure in the times that I've pursued it, whether it was for sports or academically, it kind of, what's nice about it is it gives you that opportunity to kind of test yourself and challenge yourself in different ways, right? So when you guys personally, when you're pursuing, something new, something that you can be competitive in, what kind of mindset do you guys approach competition when you're starting out, or like even when you're in the midst of it, or if it's a long-term thing? What do you kind of remind yourself to keep yourself grounded through it, so you don't revert to those, unethical things?
I think that's something that you just have. If you're ethical, then you're not going to do anything unethical to win, you know. But if you're like borderline, not really sure if you're going to do the right thing or the wrong
Borderline.
thing just to win, right? Because there are some people who are like that, where normally they're good, but they're prone to doing bad things just to win. I think, like I said, you just got to remind yourself, is it worth the risk of losing, whether it's people or things, just to win? I think that's what you have to consider. If you're okay, like let's say being by yourself and not having any friends and not having any family, then fine, go do whatever you want, because you don't have a care in the world. But if you're scared of losing friends and family and stuff like that, then which path are you going to choose when you compete?
I think it depends to like what kind of competition you're getting into. So like I like to do things like solo because I know everything is on me. My performance is based on
Mm.
the work I put into it. Because I've definitely played on teams where it's like, half the team is really trying to win and work hard, and then the other half just doesn't care. And sometimes that's not fun at all. So you do have a responsibility if you're going to join a team to actually contribute to what the team's goal is. And hopefully the team's goal is cohesive. Like, we all want to go out there and win. Now, I've come across some teams, especially in rugby, where they flat out say, like, we just want to have fun. We just get together and we just play this game and just have fun. And you can respect that, right? It's like, okay, they're at least they're all in it together. When you're signing up for this team, you know what you're getting into. So you have to remember that, like, if you're gonna join a team, you have a responsibility to that team, because you can't just be your own person on the team doing whatever
Mhm.
you want. Like volleyball is a prime example of that. If you play volleyball and the rest of your team is really good and competitive and trying to play at a high level, but you're not, end up being the weak point of that team. And the team is only as good as its weak point when it comes to like a sport like volleyball.
Coming off of that, Nate, and just anyone in general, what would promote growth? Do you think? Because it sounds like it requires a lot of accountability, um, in the sense of being respect. Because some people might be like, "Oh, I'm too shy," or "This is like very uncomfortable to me." Like, how do you kind of push yourself to be able to rise up to the occasion?
I think it takes encouragement, especially if you're on a team. They have to be encouraging, not saying, "Oh, you suck. You're like the worst player ever," right? But
Mm.
encourage you and kind of help you out to be better. I think that's what's really needed when, if it's a team thing. If it's an individual, then you just got to find ways to motivate yourself.
And you have to look too at like who's in charge of the team. So not enough credit goes to like the coaching staff and the owners. I could think of like when I watched a documentary on the New Zealand rugby team, the All Blacks. When you watch them, you understand why they win pretty much every game they play, because they are all on the same page. Like, we are going to win, we are going to be the best, and any team we play, we're going to beat them, and it shows. On the flip side, I watched a documentary on the Dallas Cowboys, and it was like the complete opposite culture. They just kind of stroll in. They're like, "Yeah, we're here to play football. Yeah, we're gonna have fun, this and that." And you're like, "No wonder this team never wins. Like, there's no desire, drive to win." And everyone who's a Dallas Cowboys uh, fan is so frustrated with the team because of it. So there you have an example, especially when it comes to like high level professional sports. It's like if you don't win, you're letting down basically an entire city at that point.
Womp womp. So sad for Dallas.
I say that and I live here in Dallas, Fort Worth, but I can't get behind the team. Like I really want to like the team that's down the road from me, but I'm like, do they even want to win?
I won't comment about the sports, and I'm not gonna go there. I'm not gonna explore that discussion. You're gonna say something, Arnie, I think.
No, they want to win. They just probably don't have what it takes. That's why.
Or sometimes
No, I
like
could
it's like
tell they do not
joking.
want to win.
Sometimes I think I won't. I'm not super into the sports that we have here, but a lot of ours choke a lot of the time. That's like kind of what we're known for.
Yeah, I
Is
think
like
they can't play under
choking.
pressure.
Yeah,
And,
definitely
and
an aspect of competition.
and especially now because everything's televised and everyone's got something to say.
Hmm.
And so I think that's why a lot of people, I think they think too much. They think more than what they should.
I feel
See,
like
when
that's
I
why
was
it gets so intense. Sorry, go ahead, Nate.
when I was in Houston, like we did not have a good team, the basketball team at the time I was there, but they played their hearts out, and the city of Houston loved their team, the Rockets. So there's that aspect too, where it's like you actually see the heart, in the athletes, and you could be proud, like that's my team. Like they're not the best, but I know they put everything into winning, and you could tell they wanted to win no matter what. And so that means something too. You don't have to be the best. You don't even have to win to
Hmm.
actually, being held by high regard and be an inspiration to people.
Just being able to be out there, I think, is already commendable, right? Because they're trying, as opposed to just opting out of it completely. It's like,
Yeah,
no,
actually
never
actually
mind.
trying to go beyond expectations.
Yeah. And I'm glad that I forgot who mentioned it earlier, but I think what it makes the stakes even more intense is, when you do have that audience, when you do have people kind of looking on and watching you, but the people that you have in your corner, in your audience, that also makes a difference, like being able to look to them and that support, and like, oh yeah, I'm doing this for them. Like, oh yeah, like, yeah, one of you said that earlier, it just reminded me of that. But I do want to ask if there's ever a time that we should not compete. Like we should be like, I don't know that we need to turn this into competition. Like I don't think this needs to be about because I feel like we've had those moments, right? Where we're kind of like, I
School.
don't think this needs to be about competition right now.
School, I feel like that's one of the things that I feel like we don't really need to compete in school. Like it'll be, it's good if everyone gets like 100%, in their in their grades, right? But I know there are some people who like, like you try to ask them questions and like they will actually teach you the wrong thing because they want to stay on top. you know?
Yikes.
And like sometimes there's people who like take it like a step too far where they will actively try to do things that will they kind of like distract you from like from learning the same things. They will actually try to distract you just so they can stay on top. And like that's the thing with like grades. It's not a competition. Like if we both get 100% in our exam, like we both get 100%. It's not like there's like a winner. There's like a winner there. We just both get like 100%. And so I would say, like school competitions, of course, like spelling bee and stuff like that. But it's good to compete in that. But like just like school in general, like I think it would be better to be able to help each other because I think like one of the reasons why we're put in like in like a random classroom is like to teach us how to work with people, right? In group projects and things like that, or just being in a classroom in general. It teaches us how to work with other people. And the thing with like with being in a group is most of the time people make up for like what someone lacks. Someone could be like very knowledgeable like book wise, but they're not, like let's say they're not really good at applying that knowledge. Like they're not really streetwise. They're not good at applying that knowledge to life. So I think like it's in terms of school, it's better to kind of help each other, because like that's basically your team, right? Like the people in school, your classmates, things like that. Like you're there to work together to help each other, kind of do do good and make up for like whatever everyone's like lacking. There's bound to be someone there who will make up for that and who can help you like gain that skill as well.
I think in personal lives we shouldn't be competing because I know I have when with my group of friends where some of them's like, no, I'm the better friend. No, I'm the better friend. I'm like, no, let's just all be the best friends, right? You don't have to be like, oh no, I'm the better one because I do this. So I think like in personal lives, I think there should not be competition. And then also with kids, no, I'm mom's favorite. I'm dad's favorite, right? Like growing up as a kid, there were six of us in the family and we really didn't care if we were the favorite or not, so we never competed in that way. And so I think like in personal lives, I think that should be just we're just all friends.
You know, that reminds me of like growing up. Whenever me and my friends would come up with like our own games, we would constantly adjust the rules because we wanted just the most fun competition as possible. We didn't want anything to be lopsided, so we would always like change the rules. And then the phrase that kept popping up in my head throughout the show was "No man is an island." So
Mm,
you can only burn so many bridges before like you are that island, and you're by yourself essentially, and nobody can get through life completely by themselves. So you cannot just destroy your relationships with anybody and everybody, because you're always going to have to rely on somebody for something at some point.
100%. Last thing, something that you guys learned the hard way about competition. Could be anything. Could be about
I'd
yourself,
say
could be about others, could be about
I
whatever.
would say if you're in a team, play your best. Like you don't be that person who, like what Nate said earlier, don't be that person who's just like, oh, I'm just here to have fun. And which is all well and good if you're just competing by yourself. Even if you get the last place, you're still happy. But if you're in a team and you're just like you're the person who's like, oh, I'm just playing for fun, like that puts your team like that always puts your team at a disadvantage. And that's something I learned like the hard way because I just wanted to be that person, which is like like I just like, and I know I prime people by telling them I'm just here to have I'm just here to have fun. I don't care if we win. But like some people, they really want to win, and like what we were talking about earlier, like for them, that's that's what makes them happy. So that's the kind of like what made me change up into like, okay, like if I'm in a team, I'm gonna do my best. We might not win, but I'm at least gonna put effort into it. So just so we can say that we did our best, and I don't feel like I don't feel like I became sort of like the what's that the weak link in like this chain. But yeah.
I think for me is know when to compete and know when it's not a competition. Because I think with some people who are overly competitive, they'll do whatever they want. They can, they'll walk over people's toes and all that stuff. And when I was a kid, I was really competitive because, one, I was practically the only Asian in my class. And so I had to show everybody that even though I looked different, that, I was like them and or better or whatever. And so I always had to be the best. But there's times where you don't have to be the best, right? There's times where it's okay if you're not the best. And so I think knowing when to compete and when not to is really important because like you could lose friends, you can lose family members, you can lose things just because you're so competitive. So yeah.
I also think of like, can you really control your competitive nature? So I think of like race car drivers again. You know, if they're out on the public roads, there's like stories they tend to drive really fast. So you need to know when to shut that off and completely change what you're doing in life. And I could relate that to uh going through a rugby season and then playing a volleyball tournament. It's like that intensity of coming out of a rugby season, that intensity is not the same playing volleyball. So I may have yelled at people a little too much because I mean on the rugby field that's all you're doing is just yelling at people. Everything is urgent. Everything is, you need to be there, you need to be doing this. And that's not quite the intensity required to play volleyball. I'll say that.
I'm just imagining that transition from rugby yelling to ball, because with volleyball when they do the first serve, it's like it's usually like really quiet, and then all of a sudden you just hear Nate like, "Come on, die!"
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. No more comment from me.
Okay. For me, I feel like it's really about knowing where your ego is at and trying to keep that in check. Because I have a very vivid moment in my mind of when I was playing basketball and I was getting like too confident. And I just remember I was egging on my opponent. I had the ball and then I lost the ball. So, it's kind of like that. It's like you can't you can't think you have it if like until it's at the end, right? When you'll really know if you have something. You can't like don't overshoot. What is it? Don't count your eggs in the basket before like they've even. Am I making sense? That's the thing, right?
Don't count
Do you
your
know what I'm
chickens
talking about?
before they hatch.
Oh yeah.
Actually, I'm concerned now. Do you foul out every game you play?
No, I don't. But that's just my lesson. Watch your ego. Your ego will be the end of you. It can be the end of you in a lot of things. So thanks, guys, for this conversation about competition. I feel like I learned a lot of like sports history that I didn't know, Nate. Thanks for all those details on that. It helps inform me about keeping myself in check and being my competitive nature. So thanks to everyone who's also been there in the live chat. Thanks. We didn't get to read everybody's names, but we appreciate you watching. We hope that you can share the link and share it with anyone who might have trouble with competition. Take care, everyone. Have a good weekend.